Viewers, at 6 p.m. today, Times Now accessed a letter that has been sent out by the Ministry of Home Affairs in response to queries and concerns raised by certain members of Parliament. Viewers, this letter is alarming in its breadth because for the first time, it points to a worrying, deepening, growing nexus between individuals linked to the Pakistani deep state, the ISI, Pakistan's army, and of course loosely with a cabal of terrorist organizations that have a notoriously Islamist agenda. Two A-listers in Bollywood. The MHA letter accessed by Times Now, written by the MOS of Home, Mr. G. Kishan Reddy, suggests that the ISI and Pakistan have infiltrated through certain proxies Bollywood's best known and elite circles. Now, viewers, we know that Bollywood had succumbed to the lures of the underworld for almost 3 decades. Bollywood itself became a victim of the underworld's depravity and, of course, insidious extortionist bids. Over the last few years, that hold had lessened, at least to the point of being manageable. But in its place now, what we are seeing is the slow but steady turning of the mind of top celebrities of Bollywood. Now, ordinarily, viewers, you could say that, look, what's wrong if certain stars have links to individuals who are from Pakistan or even from Kashmir? But viewers, these individuals are not ordinary individuals. They are hypothecated in many ways, and we will reveal all of that in just a few moments to you, to the Pakistani deep state, to the ISI, to the Pakistani army, and to terror organizations. Dirty money. And these individuals are persuasive, viewers, and they might be actually pushing some of our A-list stars to take positions which may not actually either paint India in a flattering light or even do a certain degree of justice to the programs and policies of Indian governments, not necessarily the NDA. But, viewers, if these Bollywood A-listers were not public figures with massive followings, the impact might have been less, or at least less bothersome. But this is not the case. Increasingly, we are seeing advocacy from Bollywood. Nothing wrong with that. But now we must begin to question whether some of what is parroted by Bollywood stars is really of their own individualistic thought, or is it fed to them by a lobby of individuals who are slowly making an impression on them. Today, the Ministry of Home Affairs is calling upon Bollywood to turn its back, to not just disassociate but also denounce some of these individuals. Of course, viewers, the letters that you're seeing on your screens are an appeal. They're not an order, they're not an edict, it's not a law. It has been left to a large number of these Bollywood stars to reflect, introspect, and come out with denunciations. Yes, with denunciations which are purely voluntary. Let me just take you through what this letter that we have access talks about. Now, it was in response to a letter written by Rahul Shivshankar, who is a Shiv Sena MP, and it was written to Amit Shah, the Minister of Home Affairs. In response, the ministry says that we have examined the concerns that you have raised, and Shivale was pointing out to a nexus between A-listers viewers and certain individuals that were using these A-listers to promote events, make money to fund anti-national activities. Now, viewers, over the last few months, we have seen a great deal of advocacy from Bollywood of a large number of issues. The Rohingyas, Article 370, CAA, all sorts of political policies, decisions have been commented upon. Now, the Ministry of External Affairs has apprised the Ministry of Home that certain individuals who have been named there, Rehan Siddiqui, Rakesh Kaushal, Darshan Mehta, have been blacklisted on the recommendations of the Consulate General of India, Houston. Further, the Embassy of India in Washington, D.C. and the Consulate General of India in Houston have also requested to engage with prominent influencers, cultural bodies and bona fide Bollywood-affiliated local entities to ensure that appropriate message is conveyed to Indian actors and artists, very, very important, viewers, so that they disassociate themselves from such anti-national elements. Now, viewers, BJP former Member of Parliament Jay Panda has come out, and he has said that this goes beyond these 3 or 4 individuals, that there are other personae dramatis. And let me take you through who this particular BJP former Member of Parliament and Vice President of the party, Jay Panda, is talking about. Let's take out some of those pictures. We are first talking about an individual called Tony Ashai. Tony Ashai, who is known to be very close with Imran Khan, is a supporter of the separatist movement in Jammu and Kashmir, has linkages with a large number of Bollywood's A-list viewers. Those pictures are there for you to see on your screens. But who is he really? Tony Ashai is the alleged member of ISI-floated terror group JKLF that spews venom against our forces. Here is one such instance, viewers. Let's go back to that particular tweet. Kashmiris see Indian soldiers as foreigners who are out to grab their land. Generations of Kashmiris have grown up under this brutal occupation. So he defines, viewers, India's very bona fide claim on Kashmir is mala fide, and India as an occupational force. Occupying force, rather. He goes on to say, alleged member of ISI-floated terror group. No other leader, he says, has done for Kashmir what Captain has done. Part of anti-India ecosystem, sympathetic to Pakistan's stand on Kashmir and Hindutva. This is Tony Ashai for you. He goes on to say, viewers, that Burhan Wani was martyred by Indian soldiers. He stood up for his nation and his people, almost advocating Azadi. He hails Pakistan-funded terrorists and caliphate advocates like Burhan Wani. He's not the only one. There is also Anil Musarrat. Who is he? He raises funds for Pakistan's Tehreek-e-Insaf in the United Kingdom. He has close proximity with Pakistan Army Chief and the DG, the Director General of the ISPR, which is, of course, the ISI, viewers. He's a part of the advisory team to Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan. And look at his affiliations to Bollywood A-listers. Let's put out his pictures with the A-list of Bollywood. There you can see it. Anil Musarrat. Large number of Bollywood celebrities. Sonam Kapoor, Ranveer Singh, Anil Kapoor, Karan Johar, many others. Let me bring in Vivek. Vivek, all these individuals, now might have fraternized with these individuals not knowing about their antecedents, even though that is not an excuse, because these are public personalities with a huge imprint on Indian minds. They can influence the discourse. They have to be actually responsible for themselves and for their actions, no doubt. But for a moment, let's say that they acted in ignorance.
Precisely.
Today, it is incumbent upon them to disassociate themselves. And that is really what the MHA is asking, and what certain former members of parliament and very, very respectable commentators and politicians are asking.
Well, we know the craze of the Indian diaspora, whether it be for Bollywood or for cricket. To be told that these stars, whether it be of Bollywood or of cricket, have to be aware of the people whom we are mingling with is nothing wrong. Well, if a Bollywood star goes to a Dubai or to a London or a New York, it's only natural that people will go around, flock around them for selfies and pictures. But what if it goes one step beyond that? If it goes towards a business relationship, isn't it incumbent upon people who are well aware, people who are on social media, people who read up, to check the background of these people? And it just takes a cursory look at these people and their activities to know that their antecedents are suspect. And these are individuals who are very vulnerable. Indian High Commission...
Business relationships, Vivek? Are you now suggesting that a business commercial relations?
Precisely. I mean, I'm not suggesting even at the point when they entered into business, they were aware of it. Now, if you're aware of it, it is incumbent on stars who are swearing by their Swades, people who claim to be Indian and holding the flag, that they should disown. We are not talking of a Mathake's moment where you go ahead and go gun for the individuals, but based on some of the data, like on the web, I have just looked at some of the best properties in Dubai. One is called the Royal Estates, launched in 2014. This is a 2.3 million square foot gated community. It's about 3.2 billion dirham entire project cost. Then it goes on to speak about the 1,200 studios, how it is one of the best properties in Dubai, which is most sought after. Remember, these are the times when there was a huge real estate boom in Dubai. The residential buildings are being designed by world-famous architect Tony Asai, and the aim is to create comfortable, sophisticated living space provided for the citizens. So that's a direct
business and commercial link. Commercial link. Now, viewers, just think about it. Would you just do business with any Joe Blog without finding out about their antecedents? Yes, no one is denying. Tony Asai is supposed to be a really celebrated architect. But pay a little attention to what he does, what he says, who he fraternizes with. Money is not everything. That's the basic thing. And I want to open this out. Thanks indeed, Vivek. I'll come back to you in a little while. I want to go straight across also amongst our guests to Jay Panda, who joins us. And I want to begin by asking him some questions. Now, Mr. Jay Panda, you have tweeted, you've not taken any names, and one can appreciate that. I'll ask you a little bit about that. I'm going to take the liberty of paraphrasing you. You have come out and said that these individuals, Bollywood A-listers, who have been mentioned in a thread to have had contact with certain dubious characters who have links with the Pakistani deep state, must come out and denounce these links. What's the context?
Well, in fact, I've seen more than one thread. And if you go into the timeline of my tweet, many others have pointed them out. There are multiple threads which show individuals abroad. Some of them are Pakistanis, some of them are NRIs. And their tweets and threads show that they are urging violence in Jammu and Kashmir. And some of them are seen fraternizing with personalities from Bollywood. Various different personalities, and some of them are also, the same people are seen along with Pakistan's army generals and in their army bases. So it's fairly obvious that these people have ISI and Pakistani army connections. And considering the kind of terrorism that is sponsored by those entities in India, I think our Bollywood personalities ought to renounce such links and such connections.
Renounce. Okay, that's very important. What you're asking is for a renunciation. But let me ask you, the underworld, once very close to many individuals in Bollywood, we've known of that particular association. But this, one would think, goes a step beyond, doesn't it? The Pak ISI, the Pak government infiltrating Bollywood, that's of a different order.
Well, yes, I think there has been a lot of reportage in the past about Bollywood's links with mafia, with funding from the underworld, and these underworld agencies and personalities having clear links in Pakistan, living in Pakistan. There was expected that there would have been some cleanup by now, and perhaps there has been, but clearly not all of it has been cleaned up. But now that India has been taking different kinds of attacks lying down for a long time, and now that we are no longer willing to tolerate that, we are pushing back. For example, with Balakot last year, I think these ISI handlers are trying different means. And one of them is to urge violence through social media, and they get credibility because they are seen partying with famous celebrities from India. So I think it is important that Indian celebrities, look, whatever be the past, at least from the present onwards, now that it is clear that these people are connected to ISI and Pakistan, it does not make sense to continue having relations with these people.
But there are many who are criticizing you today, Jay Panda. I don't know if they're close to any of these stars, but they certainly are sympathetic to them. And they're saying, for example, Shobha Dey has taken a swipe. She said many will say that there's nothing wrong about having, ties with individuals across the border. After all, the Indian government has diplomatic relations. So what's the big deal?
I'm disappointed with Shobha Dey's response, because while in normal times, yes, we can have ties, and yes, indeed,
Yes.
our government has diplomatic ties, but our government does not go and party with those individuals who are hanging out at ISI outfits and Pakistani army training camps, the very organization that is sending terrorists across the LOC and killing hundreds of people. We have attacks every week. So I think that is disingenuous, and that's unfortunate.
Okay, disingenuous, unfortunate. Thanks, Mr. Jay Panda, for joining us. I want to open this out very quickly. Dr. Anand Ranganathan is here with us. Dr. Sambit Patra is here with us. Before I come out to you, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, I want to bring in Dr. Patra. Dr. Patra, many people will say, and they, have already started making these sounds, that anyone who disagrees with your policies, anyone who's a dissenter, whether they are well known or not, is immaterial. You call them anti-nationals. How do you respond to that?
I think it's a no-brainer. I don't even have to explain them. It's not rocket science. What does this man, who is called as Tony Ashai, and whose actual name is Asim Asai, in fact, his name is Aziz Asai, what has he tweeted? He has tweeted, "Why do I feel that Kashmiris living in Kashmir could do more but they aren't? Ever since August 5th last year, I see diaspora here in US and elsewhere working day and night to advocate the cause. But I don't see the same energy among the Kashmiris in Kashmir. Why?" He goes ahead in a series of tweets almost to propagate some kind of violence in Jammu and Kashmir, using people of India while they sit within the comforts of their home as a cannon fodder. I firmly believe this is something which is sedition, nothing less than sedition. Then we have the second man that you were talking about, Anil Musharrat. In fact, Anil Musharrat is a Pak citizen, and he in fact shares a post of advisor with the Pakistani PM, Mr. Imran Khan. The 5 million home project lies upon his shoulders. And here is a man who shares bonhomie with many of the people from the industry. First and foremost, I would not like to generalize this whole issue. Bollywood is a respected industry, but well, yes, there are certain questions, and give me certain time, because I really need, because I am also a victim of this. I'll tell you why I am a victim. There is a Pulitzer gang. I call these people Pulitzer gang. A few days ago, when we had the jihadists, the Islamists and Pakistan funded terrorists firing from a masjid in Jammu and Kashmir, and we saw as to how a grandfather died and a 3-year-old sitting on the chest of the grandfather. And when I said, where are the Pulitzer lovers? Remember, this gang, this very gang came and attacked me. There were attacks on me from Pakistan. Pakistani's ministers tweeted against me. There were some Dadlanis and Swaras in the Bollywood who attacked me. And then I said, there is a deep nexus. The nexus is not just in India, this is an international nexus. These placard holders, do you believe these people will not even hold a rose petal for nothing. They hold placards because there is a reason behind it. And what is this letter that you are showing today? The letter of the government which was issued only on, I believe a couple of days ago. What does this letter say? This letter categorically mentions that, well, yes, there is a nexus in US. Bollywood actors from India have been to that nexus, have fallen prey to that nexus to go and propagate anti-India sentiments.
That's a serious charge.
And we have to check that. This is a calculated move.
Calculated move with national security implications.
I'll just conclude. I will just conclude in 10 seconds. If you permit me 10 more seconds, I beg of you. As was the government, so was the industry. There was a government before in which to share the bed with the traitors was normal. Remember the famous handshake of Mr. Manmohan Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the former Prime Minister, with the murderer Yasir Malik. If Yasir Malik was sleeping with the government, well, yes, the industry was also sleeping with traitors.
Okay, now, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, look, people have a right to fraternize with whoever they want. People have a right to say what they want. You can be paid to spew anti-India venom. You might have a reason born out of free will to spew anti-India venom. That's your choice. But this particular story, as Jay Panda also says, as Dr. Patra says, is alarming because it suggests that there is a deep-seated nexus which feeds an ecosystem which leads to the warping of narrative around national security issues, undermining India's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and several other issues. Do you see it that way, Dr. Ranganathan?
Yes, I do. Yeah, good evening, Rahul. This expose by you goes on to show how easy it is for anti-India elements to infiltrate Bollywood. There is little doubt that while you have outed these anti-India Islamist puppets who eulogize terrorists like Burhan Wani, just who the marionettist is would need a little more digging. But I will stick my neck out and say it is the ISI. Because there is precedence, Rahul. Do you remember a few years ago a man called Ghulam Nabi Fai was arrested and convicted by US court for running an NGO called the Kashmiri American Council, funded directly by the ISI? He had roped in a nice collection of Indian journalists and intellectuals for his propaganda purposes. And during the court deposition, page number 4, not only was it brought out that Fai was in cahoots with multiple terror outfits, he had also introduced an Indian activist, Gautam Navlakha, to an ISI general on the direction of the ISI. This Navlakha fellow is currently, cooling his heels in jail. He has proudly and openly given Kashmiris a call for incitement, sedition, support for guns and arms struggle, treason, and wrenching Azadi from India. Now, I am not suggesting that the Bollywood actors you have exposed as having associations with these two turnips, Tony and Anil, are as brainwashed and deranged as some of these anti-India activists. In fact, their associations appear to be religion and ideology agnostic, which is how Bollywood functions, by the way. Remember the underworld funding and Dawood, Dubai parties and Sharjah cricket matches, half the Bollywood used to frequent back in the 90s. That said, our actors should be more careful who they meet and associate with. Harbhajan and Yuvraj are barely recovering from their association with that rabid 17-year-old Islamist Shahid Afridi. I just don't get these celebs. Your every movement and meeting is planned days ahead and weeks ahead by your PR agencies and a dozen secretaries, and yet you end up with these anti-India ISI-sponsored dunderheads. Either sack your PR army or stop making a song and dance about how much you love India and would never associate with, or get honey-trapped by these ISI puppets.
Okay, let me bring in Paranjoy Thakurta. Paranjoy Thakura, what stops these A-listers? Let's forget for a moment that they are guilty of perhaps not doing their homework, or their PR agencies, walk them into a trap or what have you. Let's for a moment give them that. But what stops these A-listers from denouncing these alleged proxies even after the Ministry of Home Affairs calls upon them to call out some of these instigators, alleged instigators? Are they having a tough time because, as Dr. Patra and Mr. Jay Panda say, perhaps because there's a deeper nexus, there is something more to this. And that's why you have this kind of strange advocacy.
Rahul, first, let me preface my remarks with a bit of background information. A section of Bollywood have always had links with the underworld in India and elsewhere. You know, even before Dawood Ibrahim was declared as India's most wanted in the 90s, early 90s, people knew about his association with Bollywood. You know about his association with the film star Mandakini, who acted in Raj Kapoor's film Ram Tere Ganga Maili. Then you are aware of allegations that the T-Series head Gulshan Kumar's death was allegedly masterminded by people associated with him. The short point is, showbiz across the world and also in India has always had links with dirty elements, underground elements, criminal elements. Now, Mr. Jay Panda hasn't mentioned Tony Ashai, but you have. Are you suggesting that because Tony Ashai's picture is there with Shah Rukh Khan, with Soni Nigam, with Sonam Kapoor, Ranveer Singh, Anil Kapoor, Karan Johar, and with Imran Khan, of course, are you suggesting that all these Bollywood stars, with the exclusion of Imran Khan, of course, are also anti-national elements? I'm asking. I don't know what you are trying to suggest by showing all these pictures. And let me make one other point. You know, Mr. Jay Panda has said that he urges patriotic Bollywoodis to renounce. I think he probably means denounce. I read his tweet. I hope he means more than Kankana Ranaut, Vivek Agnihotri, and the usual group of people who belong or who are supporters of the party of which Mr. Panda is now national vice president. After, of course, he was, of course, as you know, suspended from the Biju Janata Dal, where he, the party with which he was associated for a long time. So it would be good, instead of making these allegations, you know, alluding, there are so many, I mean, these gangsters, including this gangster who was killed in Kanpur, he has pictures with all kinds of political leaders. So are you trying to suggest that all the political leaders who were have pictures with Mr. Vikas
No, I'm not
Dubey,
suggesting anything. I think,
prominent members
look, one second, Mr. Thakurta, you know, the government has come out with an appeal. A former member of parliament has come out with an appeal. You don't seem to answer the real question. The real question that I put to you, perhaps it went over you, I don't know, over your head or what have you, but the point is, what is stopping these individuals from coming out and saying that we denounce these people, that we feel that we were taken advantage of, that our celebrity was misused to legitimize a group of individuals like Tony, Ashai and what's the other chap's name? What is it? Anil Musarrat, Tony Ashai, several others. There are 3 others here. Look at them. Rehan Siddiqui, Rakesh Kaushal, Darshan Mehta, who are maybe of some sort of... No, one second. Allow me, sir. I didn't interrupt you at all. Let me finish. I think you have not understood. You have not understood, or you deliberately tried to skirt the issue. Well, let me bring in Dr. Patra to respond to you. Let him respond. Let him respond. No, I've heard a long history of Bollywood from you, once upon a time in Bollywood and this, that. It doesn't count very much. Dr. Patra, respond quickly.
You are shouting me down.
What is there to shout down? I'm correcting your impression, your false equivalences. I'm just telling you, I think you're again shooting the messenger when you shouldn't be. Dr. Patra, quick response to the gentleman. He asked a series of questions of the BJP.
Only if he allows me to. I don't want to shout over him. Thank you. In fact, when I heard Mr. Thakurta began by rightly
Shah Rukh Khan has been asked by the government and by the member of parliament to denounce. Who am I to ask? I'm a small little anchor, sir. Who you troll on a regular basis. I'm a small little personality. What are you talking about? Please.
Can I please?
Let the big men, let the big wigs solicit the answers.
Allow me to speak.
हम तो छोटा मोटा आदमी है,
Allow
sir.
me to speak.
Dr. Patra will ask the big questions. Dr. Patra, you ask Shah Rukh the big question tonight. Ask him. Ask Shah Rukh the big question.
I'll ask everything, but if only I'm allowed to. I don't want to shout over anyone. Thank you. Just a second. I mean, I was listening to Mr. Thakurta, and Mr. Thakurta's contention was, it was quite normal for Bollywood to have relation with the underworld, and since time immemorial, Bollywood was having relation with the so-called underworlds, the dons, the downs, and there was Ram Teri Ganga Maili. So, well, yes, Ram Teri Ganga Maili ho gayi, papiyon ke paap dhote dhote. Now the time is Ganga ko saaf karna padega. It is time of Ganga Safai Abhiyan chalana padega. Is it wrong to have a Ganga Safai Abhiyan?
Okay.
Ganga has to be clean. And how would it be clean? And let me tell you, in this new age world, this is the new age propaganda world. Today, in fact, a series of Netflix has been banned in Turkey. Why? Because they thought that our culture would be spoiled if a particular Netflix series goes into air. I mean, all these subtle messaging, I mean, all these meetings, all these, Fight Club meetings that we are seeing, these are not for nothing.
Very quickly, Rahul.
They're trying their best. The propagandists are trying their best through various means to send out subtle messages. And it's extremely important that we have a close
there is an ecosystem, there is an echo chamber, and no one here, from times now, neither am I seeking answers. We are only a conduit for the questions that have been raised. The questions have been raised by the MHA, the questions have been raised by respectable members of parliament that belong to the intelligentsia, raised by Dr. Patra, others. We're going to take a short break and we'll come right back to Sushant Sareen, Mr. Hegde, and others on our panel. Ashutosh ji is also waiting in the wings. We're coming right back in just a few seconds, viewers. Bear with us. Viewers, this is a big story. Are the views of B-Town A-listers on sensitive issues of national significance compromised by links to the Pakistan ISI? The Indian government definitely feels to certain BJP former members of parliament, leaders believe this to be the case. Let's ask this. Sushant Sareen joins the broadcast. Sushant Sareen, where do you stand on this? What do you make of this?
Rahul, a couple of things. See, number one, this is typical dissemble by these people like Pranjoy Guha Thakurta. When they say politicians' pictures are also taken with criminals, yes, but a politician is in a huge assembly and somebody comes and gets clicked with him. But that politician does not make that criminal the local guardian of his child. He does not openly declare in a television interview that one of these ISI characters, this Musarraf fellow, is his elder brother or younger brother. I don't know which brother. He doesn't do that. And very often when the scandal breaks out, he is actually mortified that, this picture was taken. Number one. Number two, these stars and these celebrities must realize that it is India and the people of this country who have made them stars. And for them to actually insult the people in this country by voting with or associating with I don't want to say anything else, what they do with these guys, take money from them because they go and they shake their bums in some of their parties and get tons of money. They are actually disrespecting this country. And just people of this country must take a call whether these kind of characters should be made celebrities, should be made stars in this country, or they should be pulled down from their pedestal and put in the rubbish bin of
how important,
the celebrity
Ashutosh,
world.
how important is it tonight for these stars to come up?
No, but I must say one or two more things. Number three, this kind of normalization which we have done of terrorism and of separatism, I think is unacceptable. Does Mr. Shah Rukh Khan not know what Tony Ashai stands for? That he wants to break up this country? Do these people not know that Anil Musarrat and other characters of his ilk are India baiters and Hindu haters? They don't know that. Don't they realize that by seeing to be associated with these ISI moles and characters and these Pakistani fellows, they are actually serving as useful idiots for these fellows at best, and at worst, probably plugging some sinister agenda which these guys have to open doors because, you introduce somebody to somebody else and doors suddenly start opening.
Okay,
and all that
how important is it tonight, on the back of what Sushant Sareen is saying, how important is it tonight for B-Town A-listers to denounce these individuals who they have been photographed with and what they stand for? Ashutosh.
Rahul, I think it's a great
it's not just about being photographed with them.
irony that we are asking them to denounce. If they denounce, will it absolve them from the crime they committed? If the denouncing is the easy way out, then it's okay.
Okay.
I will come and anybody will come and denounce it. See, that there's a larger point. A larger point is that one of your panelists has said it's how easy it has become for these people to infiltrate. If it has become so easy in the last few years to infiltrate, that means what? That means India's national security has become very, very vulnerable. By whom? By the secular gang, these unmarket gangs, these Bollywood gangs, this communist gang, the JNU gang.
Sir, these are not people who are loaded with weapons tripping across the LOC.
Hear me out, Rahul. Hear me out.
These are contacts that take place overseas.
Hear me out. Because I deliberately did not name the person who said how easy it has become to infiltrate. If it has become so easy to infiltrate, under whose regime, that is the question. The point number two, I'm still flummoxed by the fact that the Modi government has not decided, has not declared the Pakistan as an enemy state. The Modi government has not yet broken its diplomatic relationship with the Pakistan. The Modi government has not asked the Pakistan High Commission to disband his office and go back, because Pakistan High Commission is a den of ISI, and I. My fact is, if you are fighting for the national security, that people like Sushant Sareen, it's easy for him to say, shake your bums. Does he know what the art form is, the cinema is? It's easy to have a reflective feudal mindset, knowing nothing about the art and the craft and the cinema, and talking about shaking your bums.
Okay.
I think these are the people who are
Sushant Sareen, quick response, since he's taken your name and he's picked you up on a phrase.
I'll just give a very quick response.
A few seconds.
Last point. I'm still
Because I don't deal.
It is the Modi government
if you want-
which told ISI agent to come and investigate the Pathankot blast. Can it be
God.
more sinner than this?
Okay.
See, I really need to come in now.
Okay.
Mr. Modi has
You
been
know,
spoken
I
more
find it
times
extremely
than
tedious to debate issues with people who call a petroleum point a petroleum point. But since he has raised my name and he's pointed fingers at me, let me tell him a couple of things. You know, this justification which he's trying to give for these characters, does he know how far back the association of, say, an Anil Kapoor with an Anil Masarrat goes, or how far back Shah Rukh Khan's association with this third-rate fellow Tony Ashai goes? Does he know that?
No one knows that. That's the reason why
very easy for these guys
the
to
government is
infiltrate,
appealing to these stars because they are responsible for shaping opinion in this country. At least they think so, to come out and make their antecedents.
What is the compulsion?
This is very
Rahul.
Okay, one second. Let me just bring in Dr. Patra. Since
Rahul,
Modi
can I
government
please
was brought into this, there's
Can I
also
please come
Sanjay
in,
Hegde, a voice of reason. Let me bring him in. Yes, Dr. Patra, quick response to Ashutosh and Sanjay Hegde from the legal perspective.
quick
Yes.
response.
Yes.
See, I'll tell you as to why this debate is extremely important. We may be laughing, smiling, and in fact pulling the leg of one of them has named Mr. Modi more than Musharrat. I'll tell you why it's important. Remember a person called as David Headley? Do you remember Headley? And who gave him in fact place in India? A case was going on against Headley, and what happened thereafter? 26/11. Do you
David
know?
Coleman Headley.
And there was a connection with with one such man. Do you remember?
Sanjay Hegde.
Or have you forgotten Headley?
Do you remember?
We've not
And that
forgotten.
is the seriousness of this debate. For God's
Never
sake,
forget.
don't trivialize it.
Never forget. Sanjay Hegde.
Rahul, can
One
I
minute,
make a
gentlemen,
one-finger
one second.
intervention,
Sanjay Hegde hasn't
Rahul,
spoken
can I
at all.
make a
Let him speak,
one-finger
please.
intervention?
Let him speak. He's biding his time.
One finger intervention, Rahul. Please.
1 second. Please let him
Rahul,
speak.
one
Let him
finger
speak.
intervention.
Let's show him some courtesy. Please. Please. Yes. Go ahead.
Rahul, one finger intervention.
1 second.
Patra mentioned David Headley. Rahul Bhatt, son of Mahesh Bhatt, knew him as David Headley. He didn't know him as Daud Janani. But the David Headley episode and the earlier episode of Sanjay Dutt did teach Bollywood a lesson, that is to stay away from trouble. Nobody in Bollywood deliberately gets out looking for questionable characters. There are questionable characters who will float by. You keep them at a distance. However, when it comes to denouncing, I have an issue with that. Guilt by association, denouncing, that comes either from the Soviet Union or it comes from the late lamented Senator McCarthy. You know, when he wanted people to deny, he wanted Charlie Chaplin, for instance, to denounce the communists. Charlie Chaplin just went out of the US. There were several people whose lives were destroyed by this kind of insinuation, guilt by association, and McCarthyism. What they have to do, unless there is
But sir, there were also many stars
unless
who were
there
in
is
bed
a
with the
formal-
Nazis. And I wish they had denounced those Nazis at the point when they should
Rahul-
have, because it may not have led to the carnage that we were
Rahul, can I
witness
just
to,
say
one of the greatest genocides. Anyhow,
Rahul, can I
Sushant
say
Sareen
one
wants to
more thing?
respond to you.
Rahul, let's
Sushant
not get-
Sareen wants to respond
I
to you.
just want to
Very
make
quickly.
one point, please. Rahul, can I just make one? Okay, just let me, one sentence. You know, we were talking about 2611 and David Headley. I think it is very important to remember that the man's son, who was found to be David Headley's guide, that same man, a so-called celebrated film director, later on participated in public meetings where he said that this was not carried out by Pakistan, this was done by RSS. Now, now suddenly, for somebody to tell me that the son did not know that he was Dawood Gilani and not David Headley, I'm sorry, I find it difficult to believe. And this is where
you
the problem
prosecuted
comes
him?
in about this ecosystem.
Okay,
How they
first
try
of
to
all-
normalize
first of all,
terrorism
viewers-
and separatism.
First of all, viewers, we don't know
You can't
if some
just
of these
insinuate
Bollywood stars
anything.
went out looking for trouble. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they went out looking for other benefits. Who knows? Who knows? But the point is, this is not about launching a witch hunt against any one particular individual. That's why I think Mr. Panda, who spoke to us earlier, told us he didn't name anybody. And I want to bring you in, Roshan George, founder of Artville. Roshan George, this is we are at an important point of inflection. Yes, certain individuals are being called out by association. We are not saying they're guilty by association, but certainly what stops them from coming out and showing a clean pair of heels by saying that, look, some of these people are scandalously anti-national. We denounce their agenda. What's wrong with that?
See, my opinion is like, if this is a very serious case, if there is an allegation, then people who are in this picture, they need to come out clean. And I think, yes.
Come out clean. So how should they come
Yes.
out clean? Should they denounce these people? Should they say that Tony Ashai, we know him, we did business with him, but we don't stand for Tony Ashai's point of view, politics, inclination?
No, they should prove that they are not guilty about this particular issue.
Okay.
The thing is, now one more thing is, if somebody knows about, if somebody have a proof of this particular incident, or they claim that they have proof of linking of Bollywood to
No one has proof, sir.
terrorist-
No one has proof. We don't know. We don't know how deep these associations are. But certainly it is now. The onus is upon Bollywood. Why do we give Bollywood stars the benefit of doubt? Dr. Anand Ranganathan, had this been Modi got photographed with a chap called Nirav Modi. And it became a massive national scandal.
You just stole the words. Yes, Rahul, it feels like I'm reading Losar's novel, The Feast of the Goat. Maybe Bakrid has come early. But let me go one by one. I'm astonished by one of your panelists saying, he condemns guilt by association. On your very show, I remember, the night Nirav Modi's, whole thing blew up, he drew an association and proclaimed Modi guilty because his photo was clicked with Nirav Modi. And as far as Ashutosh is concerned, dar ka mahal hai, isne mera naam nahi liya. But I'd like to say one of the reasons why he might be cushioning ISI is because he thinks that ISI is not Inter-Services Intelligence, but Indian Statistical Institute. So Ashutosh, ISI is not
Very
Indian
sad
Statistical
joke.
Institute. Okay,
Sad joke.
the petrolling point might be petroleum point. And finally, Rahul, can I please ask a question to the Shah Rukh Khan? To the Shah Rukh Khan of the left ecosystem, which is Mr. Thakurta.
Yes,
Mr. Thakurta very neatly circumvented the question. Yes, so I want to ask the Shah Rukh Khan of the left ecosystem, pardon the absence of hair, but Mr. Thakurta, do you condemn the fact that your friend Mr. Gautam Navlakha was introduced by Mr. Fai to an ISI general on the directions of the ISI as brought out by a US court deposition that convicted Fai for 3 years? Yes or no? दूध का दूध पानी का पानी अभी हो जाएगा.
May I suggest something? may I suggest that our super patriots like Mr. Sareen, like Mr. Rangarathan, like the former director of the Oil and Natural Gas
He's not going to answer because he knows the precedents and antecedents of Gautam Navlakha.
Let me...
He eulogizes Gautam Navlakha.
You're not letting me finish.
The guy who was introduced to... Just answer the question, yes or no. It's a simple question.
Gautam Navlakha has not been convicted by
Don't beat about the bush.
Don't.
Gautam Navlakha was introduced to an ISI general.
Convicted by any court of law, Mr. Anand Ranganathan. If you believe in Indian Constitution, do not jump to the gun.
Mr. Jon Snow, do you even understand the question I asked?
Oh my God, Mr. Astos, you did not even understand what Anand is trying to say.
Dr. Anand Ranganathan, repeat your question because they haven't got it or they're deliberately trying to obfuscate.
My God,
Yes, my question... Exactly. My question was not about Gautam Navlakha. Howsoever Mr. What's his name, Thakurta might feel or eulogize him. My question was very simple. Does he know that the deposition in the US court that convicted Ghulam Nabi Pai for 3 years also stated that Ghulam Nabi Pai introduced Gautam Navlakha to an ISI general on the direct instructions of the ISI? It's a yes or no question. Does he condemn it or not?
Let me ask you a yes or no question. Why don't you petition Mr. Amit Shah?
Now there you go.
Immediately.
Okay.
The answer to a question is a question.
Simple question.
अरे डर का माहौल बन गया. डर का माहौल है.
Sonam Kapoor, Anil Kapoor.
They would never answer this question.
Can I come in, Mr.
Are
Rahul?
you impugning?
We've just had a recruitment
May I
here.
ask him?
Because
Mr.
for them,
Thakurta has just recruited Mr. Sanjay Hegde to represent his case.
Yes, because
Sanjay
for
Hegde
them.
respond on behalf
No.
of Mr. Thakurta who has just recruited you to defend him. Okay, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. Come on.
Are you asking about the patriotism of somebody who
I
is
pity because
the
Mr.
adopted
Thakurta is going to lose the
grandson
case.
of,
Look, the simple question. Listen. It's not a complex issue. This is not a complex issue. Look,
Listen,
there are certain individuals, and
you are going
I have
after
to say
Shah Rukh Khan.
that the BJP
I'm
Vice
not going after
President,
Shah
Mr.
Rukh Khan.
Panda, who drew attention to some of these associations, has been extremely charitable. He came out and said that, look, I didn't name any of these individuals because I didn't want a witch hunt. To use the words McCarthyistic persecution of any of these individuals. I also wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. I also didn't want to suggest that everyone in Bollywood was in some way painted in a color which was less desirable. He also came out and said, viewers, and this is very, very critical. We're at a point of inflection. He also came out and said it could be that some of these individuals genuinely didn't know who these people were, that they were, consorting with or perhaps consulting with or even doing business with. So, the time has come for these individuals to just step up to the plate and say, look, we might have heard, might not have done our homework, but we denounce these people. I'm not even sure if that is acceptable enough. But that could be the bare minimum, viewers. A denouncement. Come out and say that, listen, we don't endorse this agenda. If they don't, the longer they hedge on this, many people will begin to ask even deeper questions, more serious questions. Why is it that these people are not speaking out? Has their silence been procured? And if so, by what sort of suasion? This is very, very serious, viewers.
Can I?
Yes, Dr. Patra. Before I exit this show. Yes, Dr. Patra. Will an inquiry be instituted, Dr. Patra?
Important point.
Will an inquiry be instituted? It's okay to write letters. It's okay to do background checks. But let's have an inquiry. Maybe then you can force an answer.
It's a new India, of course. It's a new India, of course, and you are seeing as to what's happening in the new India. I mean, the separatists used to sleep with the government. Now the separatists are behind the bars. So, of course, I mean, as far as the bar of, I would say, investigation is concerned, this government has raised that bar. Now, coming to a few important points. Do you know the Rafe Musarrat Foundation? The foundation run by this Anil Musarrat, Rafe Musarrat Foundation, along with the Minhaj Welfare Foundation of India, was in fact working for the Rohingyans. Welfare, quote unquote, welfare of the Rohingyans during the CAA in India.
And there were a lot of Bollywood types who were batting for the Rohingyas also.
Number two,
They were. Yes.
So it's not just that. I mean, just a second. It is not
But
just that.
none of them are batting for the
someone
Uyghur
said that
Muslims.
It's not that these
Look
people
at the
go out
power of
looking for
China
trouble.
that controls the media and
Just
these
a second.
guys.
Anand, just a second. Someone projected over here. It's not that these people were going out looking for trouble. It is not as innocent as these people were going out for buying pizza and suddenly they bumped across, say, Dawood Ibrahim. Suddenly they bumped across Mr. Fai. It is not like that. These are calculated moves. I'm not ascribing any kind of motive
Well,
to
viewers,
any individual.
look,
but
we don't want to
serious issues.
attribute
Remember,
motives,
I would like to
but
conclude
certainly
by saying-
the questions
I
are
would like to
becoming
conclude by
more
saying,
and more
when
pressing.
there was a protest.
The questions are becoming insistent and
When there
pressing.
was a protest
Answers
against
are
India.
required. When there is a vacuum such as this, viewers, then motives are also attributed. These stars are very conscious of their reputations and their image. I find it baffling that none of them has responded, and we've been trying to get in touch with their PR to elicit a response. Why is it that they're having such a problem coming out and saying all of this is trash? We are firmly with India's cause. Whoever these individuals are, they can take a walk. We haven't heard that, viewers. The questions will become bigger, more angles on this story coming up on the News Hour at 9 with Navika Kumar.